Okay, and welcome to driving an EV in the UK. Right, okay. Now, when I got my EV, I wanted to do a big, massive video of the car turning up on its transporter and sliding off the back, and that didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? Because the day it arrived, it was a horrible rainy day and I couldn't do that. The car turned up in the back of a van. It was totally enclosed inside the van, and it would have been nice to have it but I couldn't because of the weather, and it was dark and dull and miserable and chucking it down. So that sort of didn't happen, and it sort of, you have all these ones where you see people and they're going, this is my car and it's a nice sunny and shiny day. No, I didn't get that. So getting the EV arriving, and it arrived on the day, on the time it was supposed to. It was so nice because I didn't want it arriving at my front door because I live on a slight curve of the road and there's lots of other vehicles that are here. So I said to the driver, park around the corner. And when I said park around the corner, I mean there's a green area that's a park. There's a nice straight road and it's not normally got any cars parked on it because I'd never driven an EV at all. I didn't know what was going to happen when I put it into drive and put my foot on the accelerator, that I could shoot off it and just, if you take it, when you have a petrol car, you lift up the clutch until it bites, technically, to where your car will move with the power of the accelerator. And you learn in taking lessons on where that point is and how much the accelerator's on and how fast you will go forward. On an EV, you don't have that clutch, but you push the button and go into drive, and then you put your foot on the accelerator. Now, that point of where you get to a certain speed with how much pressure you put on it isn't the same, like the brakes aren't the same. So I didn't have the knowledge of that's how, and this is how you start off and that type of thing. So I didn't want to be on a curved road with piles of traffic. So I started on a very straight road. Not only that, but putting it in gear is the weirdest thing anyway. And not needing to change gear is a weird feeling as well. So when I put it into gear, or shall we say when I pushed the button to put it into drive, I foot on the brake, put into drive, foot off brake. I expected nothing to happen, and that's not what happened. The car physically moved, and I wasn't expecting that because no one had ever said that if you put into drive and take your foot off the brake once you're in the drive, the car will move. The car will work its way up to about 7 miles an hour. Well, my Ioniq gets up to about 7 miles an hour without putting your foot on the accelerator. I didn't know that. I thought there was something wrong with the car. Just to find out, no, that's what happens. You're fine. The car will move by itself. Once you put it in drive and take the brake off, you will move. So you technically get a rolling start when you take your foot off the accelerator, or off the brake, before you put it on the accelerator. So I'm going, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So I drove a very short distance. I didn't do more than 5 miles, just to feel it, and it's so unusual to feel it. The first month that I had the car in Eco, to try out Eco, and I had 5 days after getting the car, 5-6 days from getting the car, before I was going up to Scotland. So I was going to be doing 176 miles from where I live to Scotland in a car that's range when full is around 146 miles, which means I have to fuel up, or at least put something in. Sometimes maybe more than once. Yeah. So I'd already did that calculation. I'd already thought, well, where am I going to fuel up? Right, we know what we're doing. So I had a car that moved, that I hadn't driven before. The feeling of how the car feels is not the same as a petrol. The moving, when you have it in drive and you take your foot off and not touching. If I was on hill, I would understand, you would roll, but I wasn't. I was on flat. So that feeling was unusual. It wasn't something I was used to. And my feeling was, okay, right, this car is a lot of money, and I haven't driven it, and I have no one to ask, am I doing things right? So I drove the car fairly gently at the beginning. I got up to 20 miles an hour and there was nothing on the road, so I actually picked a good time that there was not many people out. And just to get how the car feels for moving and that lot. So it was a horrible day, so I couldn't go anywhere. So it was back to the driveway, and the next big problem: reverse. Okay, reverse is also interesting. You put it in reverse, and if you take your foot off the brake, you will move. You move at up to 5 miles an hour. So therefore, the car slowly moves backwards in the same way as it will slowly move forwards at the same speed, front or back. I'd never had a reversing camera before. So before I came back, I practiced some reversing into parking spaces at a supermarket. Car park. Yeah. It does sound dumb, but if you haven't had something and the car isn't running the same as a petrol car, then you need to be able to say, well, look, I need to be able to control speed, and how does it feel, how's the turn. It isn't quite the same, and it is something you need to at least practice before you go, yeah, it's the same as a petrol. But now, after time, I don't think about that type of thing, because I now understand how it feels. And I now understand when I'm driving that how it feels. If it doesn't feel right, I feel that it's not right. We understand how the car now feels when you're driving it. I know when the brakes are touching the pad and putting some resistance. I know how the car feels. The car feels different in each of the regen. Having no regen on, the car feels almost like it's running away with itself. There's nothing holding it. Put the regen on and you start feeling like something is pulling you back when you're going forward, because it's a resistance. But it's not a road resistance, and it's not a fuel use resistance, but it's that's how much it allows you to go forward. And it's the same in the Eco and the standard drive settings. Eco is so much, it holds you back. You can accelerate and you get to a certain point where, even though you've accelerated a bit more, it's like it's holding back, and then it'll go. Put it in standard and that goes away, and you can accelerate up to a faster speed, and it feels much more comfortable. I'm running in standard now, and actually my miles, you'll see, my miles are higher driving on standard than they are driving on Eco. And I'll discuss that in a different video. But how the car feels isn't quite the same. As long as you know how to drive, you can drive an electric car. But you have to understand that the way it feels when you first drive one isn't quite the same as driving a petrol or diesel car. Take it, it isn't quite the same. The feeling of the regen, the feeling of what setting you've set it at, all of these things make the car feel different. It's like driving on regen is like driving with the handbrake slightly on. It's like you've constantly got the resistance. It's like you're constantly being stopped, but you're not. So it is something you need to get used to. That's fine. That's your power level for the regen that you've picked. Because if you're not accelerating and maintaining a high acceleration, high amount of power being used, you are slightly regenning. Without it showing that you're regenning, you are, if you take the pedal up a bit and don't put as much pressure down on it, you are regenning much sooner, or you are using less energy much sooner, which feels the same. So that was my start of getting the car, was my first drive and my feelings, and how I was so disappointed I couldn't do a video showing the car come off the van and things like that. But please keep watching. I have a lot of videos that I will be doing, and we have other things that we need to bring up and go through. So keep watching, and bye for now.